Ladies, let's talk. I have two daughters. They're 7 and 10 years old right now, but one day they're going to be dating. They're going to be dating men. Both of them have already shown that they have an interest in men. And I've had to think about this lately. What am I going to tell my daughters about dating men? How am I going to try and prepare them for the world and for the chaotic world that exists before them with all these dating apps and men changing? I mean, men are in a horrible place right now. They're more insecure than ever. There's strain on both sides of the aisle, right? So that women don't know how to talk to men. Men aren't sure what their role is. That's why people like Andrew Tate and kind of this misogynistic era is gaining speed because men are lost. How am I going to prepare my girls? And I've kind of boiled it down to four core lessons. And I want to share them with you because I think even though I'm thinking about my own daughters, if you're in your 30s or 40s or even in your early 50s trying to figure out and navigate dating, these lessons still apply. And they still apply because people are people. Men are men, women are women. At least I believe that. And things aren't unique to a teenager, they're not unique to a 30-year-old when it comes to understanding gender dynamics and dating. So, first of all, I would tell my daughters, I'd say, listen, you are at an unfair advantage when it comes to dating. Women have an unfair advantage. Your relationships, by and large, are based on emotional awareness and connection. Your friendships are based on emotional connection. Maybe they started because you met at school or because you had some kind of hobby or you met at a party or something. But women, by and large, stay friends with people they feel comfortable enough to be emotional with. And so they share stories, they talk about how they're feeling. If they're depressed, they have no problem talking about how depressed they are. Men are not like that. Now, I will admit, I am a bit of a unique figure. If you look at the myriad of people in the coaching space and specifically even mental health, right? So as a doctor, you look at therapists, 80% are women. Of the 20% left over who are men, probably half of them are gay. And then of the 10% left over, a percentage of those have substance abuse or serious trauma, and that's where they got in the field. To be a straight cisgender male therapist, I mean, it's kind of a unicorn breed. There's not many of us. And so when I have relationships with my friends where I can say, hey, you look a little down, depressed, you need to talk, that's unusual, right? So I mean, I realize I'm looking at it from the place of a man who has different kinds of relationships with his buddies. And by the way, I also know that's not something you bring up in a group chat as opposed to women where they can do that. You guys can have your little WhatsApp group and say, I'm really depressed. And 17 women will chime in and say, hang in there. You got it. Do you need someone to talk to? I'll get you some Haagen-Dazs. Men aren't like that. I know groups of men who've had WhatsApp channels for years with men they've known for 20 years. Not once do they say, I'm having a real rough day. It just doesn't come up. They share stupid Instagram videos about, oftentimes about violence and sex, and because they don't know what else to do. Like, this is funny. Maybe these guys will laugh about it. Women they're at a huge, huge advantage here because they know what relationships can be, and men don't. And so when you start dating a man, you have to realize there's a chance you are the first and only meaningful emotional relationship in his life. It's not the rule, but it's a guideline. And so you have to know that going in because it does a couple things. One, it helps you kind of approach the relationship knowing that the person's at a disadvantage. You should never look down on the person. You don't want to ever feel condescending or like there's some kind of patronizing tone to it. You do, or matronizing tone to it. You don't want to do that, right? But if you were playing tennis with somebody and you're a pro tennis player, you're Serena Williams, and suddenly you're playing with a 15-year-old that's, held a racket for maybe a week and thinks that they got some chops, you're not going to go hard. You're going to say, okay, you know what? Why don't you choke your swing up like that a little bit? Your backhand needs a little bit more follow through. You're going to give people pointers because you want them to be on your level. Why? Because it makes playing tennis more fun. Otherwise, you might as well play against a wall or an empty air, right? So if the person is able to step up, even if it takes a little time, there's some patience there that can pay huge dividends. And so offer to help, offer to, you know, really kind of say, hey, it seems like you're struggling with this. Is this something you want to talk about? Right? Those kinds of invitations without pressure are huge to men because no one offers it to them. And that comes from your ability as a woman to understand emotions in a way he cannot, or he does not yet, right? I shouldn't say cannot. Another thing, self-confidence, right? Point number 2, self-confidence is the smoking gun, secret weapon of healthy relationships. If you have confidence in who you are, in your values, in your strengths, in your weaknesses, and in what you want from life, a lot of really interesting things happen. The 2 most interesting things that happen are, 1, it affords you the ability to have very clear boundaries. And boundaries are something everyone sleeps on, right? If you know what your goal is, let's say you're a woman who wants to become a doctor and the man has a career that's booming in the tech sector in San Francisco, and you get the dream residency of a lifetime in Texas. And he says, well, I'm not going to move to Texas. If you have a strong sense of values and you've always wanted to be a physician and this is your dream residency, you don't get mad and say, well, so you're just going to break up the relationship. I can't believe you'll leave me. You can't make sense. It doesn't come like that. The boundary becomes very clear. It's just fact. Like, okay, well, I've dreamt about being a physician my whole life. This is my dream residency. If you don't want to work on figuring out if this can work as a long distance relationship and you don't want to move, I'm afraid this is the end. And that's that. And yes, you can be sad on the inside, but there's no screaming and crying. Why? Because your values are aligned with a sense of a great sense of self-confidence and a security in who you are. The second thing it allows you to do is be empathetic. You can't be truly empathetic until you become confident, self-confident. It doesn't work. You can't sit there and say, I hope they like me, I hope they like me. And then as soon as they say, well, I really need this from the relationship, you can't say, well, that's not healthy. It is a complete dissonance. You need to be able to say, I'm good. I have confidence in what I want and what I need, and I know where my needs are beyond reasonable, and I know where I push the boundary a little bit because that's just who I am. And whatever you need, these aren't going to play a factor because my stuff is sure. I'm confident in what I need, and I'm confident on what, and so I'm able to be empathetic. One of the beautiful things I have when I'm working with someone, when I'm coaching a woman, is I'm not in the relationship. And so because there's no skin in the game of whether she ends up with the guy or not, because I don't care, because it's not my marriage, I'm able to look at it with such neutrality that I can be fair and I can be empathetic towards her needs. And oftentimes if I end up seeing both people, because I do that sometimes, I do see, especially in new relationships, as they feel like things are rocky, I'll see both people separately. I can actually advocate for both and it not be a conflict because I want both people to be happy. And if both people aren't happy, it's not a workable relationship. And the reason I can do that is because I don't want anything other than you being happy. But in order to get there, you have to have a sense of confidence in who you are so that your needs don't suddenly infringe on the ability to be empathetic. You know, one way to do it is the way I do it, right? In coaching or counseling someone, I'm not in the relationship, but if you are in the relationship, yours have to be kind of non-negotiable. Your values and who you are has to be non-negotiable for it to work. Otherwise, empathy is always clouded with self-sacrifice, and that's not good. That's where people feel like, I've just lost a sense of my identity. That's horrible. You never want to do that in a relationship. Will you change? If it's a good relationship, will who you are change because you're with someone? Of course. You have to let them influence you, but you also have to have this filtering process where it's like, well, that's not who I am, so I'm not gonna let that affect this me, right? As an example, just as a pure logistical, logical, simple example, if you're a neat person and your partner's messy, you becoming messy and a slob is not healthy growth. You learning to let go, and maybe you have some, obsessive tendencies about cleanliness, and you're able to leave a dish towel on the counter for a little longer without freaking out. Sure. But you're not supposed to become a hoarder. You're not supposed to become a slob. So you have to maintain that identity. And that comes from a sense of values and who you are. Healthy growth is allowed. Unhealthy growth, no thank you. The third thing is that men do sometimes need to be manipulated. I mean, I hate saying it, but my wife even does it. There's an ego about being a man. There's a leadership quality. There's a pride. I don't like that we have this all the time. I'm not proud of the fact that I have to beat my chest. I mean, hell, this morning, I lost my keys. Right? And do I still have them? See, I lost them again. I don't even know where the hell they are. So I lost my keys, and I have an air tag on my keys, but the air tag wasn't playing loud enough. And my wife said I left them in this whole thing. And I'm walking around the house going, where are my keys? I'm going to be late. Where are my keys? Right? And my wife finds them, and I say, where were they? And she said, they were in the office. And I said, no, they weren't. Right? The idea of being wrong, there's something emasculating to it. And so she laughed and she said, it's okay, I forget my keys too. Or, oh, you forgot your keys. Well, whatever you want to play it, but making it light. And I was still so wrapped up in being mad because I lost my keys that I wasn't able to connect with her and say thank you the appropriate way. I had to text her later. I had to call her later and say, I'm sorry about that. Thank you for helping me find my keys. Because it's not her job to find my damn keys. That's not her job. She has other things to do. We're preparing for Passover. She's got to clean the whole freaking kitchen, right? But she did it because she loves me and she knows that I get unruly. And she said, you should just put it in a drawer, right? And I bet you in 2 weeks, I'm going to say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it in a drawer. And somehow she's going to make me think like I came up with that idea all my own. Because if she sits there and rubs it in and says, I told you to do that 2 weeks ago, guess what? You're not going to want to do it. Or I'm not going to want to do it. Or I'm going to have to do it, but I'm going to have to, do it with my tail between my legs saying, oh yeah, my wife came up with the idea. There has to be a certain amount of pride there. Again, it's not the most attractive quality, but it does have benefits in terms of leadership and taking charge and becoming decisive, right? You want your man to be decisive. Part of the price you pay for wanting a man who's decisive is that sometimes they need to think it's their decision. Otherwise, they'll be this waffling, noodly kind of guy that is going to look to you to answer everything. You don't want that. So if there's, yes, there's a magical compromise, wonderful middle ground where men could do everything, but I haven't met anybody who's perfect at it. And once in a while, even I become this aggro kind of angry guy, and it's okay. You have to learn to kind of let men think the good things are their ideas. You'll learn how to do it in your own way. Some women do it with leaving things around the house. So I have one daughter, the younger daughter has an amazing sense of humor. She's going to do it with sarcasm. I know right away. The other daughter is very feminine. My older daughter she leans into being a girl. She puts the makeup on. She wants to do her hair. She's going to do it with a certain demure, a certain flirtation about her. You could tell already where it's going to come from and how they're going to work their angles. And it's beautiful. And they do it to me already. If my younger one wants attention, she'll make a joke and she'll make me laugh. If my older one wants attention, she'll say, oh, you're the best. And she'll lay it on thick to get my attention with her feminine charm. They already do it. 7 and 10, right? Lean into it. Learn your tools. Learn your skill sets. And then the fourth thing I would tell my daughters is, you never want to be in a place. You never, ever, ever want to be in a place where you need a man. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have this attitude of, I don't need a man. That's a bad attitude, right? How many times have you said, I don't need a man. I got this from your friends? It's horrible, right? How would you feel if a guy said that? I don't need a woman. I'm fine. I could date as many women as I want. I could be single the rest of my life. I can make kids till I'm 90. My sperm will always work. That's a horrible thing to hear. Right? That attitude sucks, but you still have to internalize the idea that I don't need it. I would like it, right? But I'm not going to sit there because as soon as you get to the point where you need a man, guess what happens on the first date? Please work out. Please work out. I'll look past all your flaws. Please, please, please. Whatever version of that, right? It might be much quieter, but you're going to accept less than you want. You're not going to gently push the man to be healthier. You're just going to let them steamroll you. Or on the other end of that, you're gonna just be defeatist and say there are no good men out there. Well, nobody's perfect. The idea is to grow together. And as long as you have this mentality of I don't need this to work, but if there's enough positive things, I'm going to try and make it work. You are so far ahead of the curve. So far ahead of the curve that it's unfair. That's what I would tell my daughters. Those four things are incredibly valuable. Now, if you're new to relationships or you're trying to build a new relationship with a man, I got to tell you, the first 3 months, you learn a lot about yourself and a lot about the way a man interacts with you. And it's a bit of an emotional journey for most men. And if you've ever had that, is he into me? Is this healthy? Do our values align? I've actually put together a guide that I think will help you quite a lot. The link is in my bio. It's a free guide. You can download it. I've made it short enough that you can read it really quickly, but informative enough that you can actually take actionable plans. I don't like psychobabble. I don't like sitting there and using big terms. You'll notice the way I talk, it's very grounded, right? Sure, I could talk about attachment style and dialectical behavioral therapy and narrative and ACT versus IFS and all these modalities, but it's not useful. What's useful is, how do you feel? What are you saying? Let's talk simple. It's better to talk simple. And if you like that style, then you're going to like the video that's popping up on your screen to watch right now. It's how to make a man miss you without playing games. Because who the hell wants to play games? Am I right? Thanks for watching.